Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you decided to spend your Sunday night with us. My name is Angie Gossman, and I am part of a group of women and men, and we call ourselves the Wellness Warriors Tribe. And each of us have such a passion to inspire others to a healthier lifestyle. We have two key speakers this evening. Lisa will speak first, and she is a wellness consultant, and Heather Koenig will talk after Lisa Pennick. And Heather is also a wellness consultant and a registered dietitian. You know, we are excited to dive deeper into what is lurking in our pantries. Labels can be pretty tricky, and honestly, for me, sometimes overwhelming. But with some basic things, learning some basic things that we can look at, we can start to break down and decode our labels better. I am going to ask that you hold your questions till the end. We've allowed time at the end of the presentation to open it up for questions. I will be muting everyone if you haven't already muted, just because we are recording this. So with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Lisa.
Thanks, Angie. That was great. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to get right into it. Have you ever wondered why items in the produce aisle aren't plastered with marketing claims? It's kind of tricky to load up a head of broccoli with fancy graphics and popular buzzwords, but it is incredibly easy to do this with a box, can, or package. Now, not everything that comes in a package is going to be bad for you. Think frozen fruit and canned beans. But for the most part, a lot of packaged foods make label claims that imply that the product inside of it will improve your health, when in fact it won't. That's why I wanted to show you the tricks to detect health washing. So you might be asking yourself, what is health washing? Well, health washing is a term used to describe the activities of companies that position themselves as leaders in the crusade for good health, while engaging in practices that may actually be contributing to our poor health. A good product, campaign, or service stands on its own merits, not on marketing claims, and offers full disclosure of all ingredients and activities. So I've heard it said that scientists couldn't invent a more perfect diet than the standard American diet if the goal was to produce disease in population. Health washing works because so many of us are overweight, are sick, and we're looking for an easy fix to solve our health problems. I was looking at a study where researchers surveyed participants about their health perceptions of vitamin fortified food. You've seen this. They discovered the following. When the carried a nutrient claim for vitamin fortification, participants were 1, less likely to look for nutrition information on the nutrition facts label, 2, more likely to select the product for purchase, 3, more likely to perceive the product as healthier, and 4, less likely to correctly choose the healthier product. We are highly susceptible to marketing. In fact, the very name of the study that I just mentioned was called Vitamin Fortified Snack Food May Lead Consumers to Make Poor Dietary Decisions. That pretty much says it all. We are lured into choosing foods that don't support our health because we believe what's on the package, and this is very powerful. We buy into the claims that are proclaimed on food packages and in advertisements because we desperately want them to work. We keep making these purchases, and the marketers keep coming out with them, and in many cases, they completely fabricate the health claims on the packages. And many of the claims are meaningless, out of context, or they don't even make any sense at all. So as Angie pulled up the slide, these are the most common health washing labels, and you probably recognize all of them. There's probably some on there that you don't even see because there are so many. I'm sure that you've even been persuaded by them. I know I have, but the more you learn, the better choices you can make. And there are so many more iterations of these terms and additional label claims, but it would be literally impossible to put them all on here. So just take a look at these. Some terms like natural are completely unregulated and they don't have much meaning. Other terms such as low sodium or low fat require the product to contain less than a certain number of grams of sodium or fat in order to be able to make the claim on the label. Health washing may draw attention to the benefits of a nutrient like fortified with calcium or a full serving of omega-3s in an attempt to make us believe that they're healthy. But those nutrient attributes of a product don't negate all of the other health-destroying ingredients that are also hiding in that food. For example, something might be low in sugar or sugar-free, but loaded up with artificial sweeteners instead. A box of cereal may be free of artificial colors and flavors, but packed with sugar or sodium, and not to mention the ridiculous amount of chemicals that are actually allowed in our food and approved, but believe it or not, are banned in many other countries. It's like trying to mask a steaming pile of garbage with a spritz of air freshener. So learning how to decipher these claims is confusing, and the game is ever changing. But here are my tips to avoid being health washed. So number one, read the ingredients first. If it's a processed item, if it's a product on the shelf, it is always best to judge it by what's in the box, not by what's promised across the front. So just flip it over and read the ingredient list. And if you cannot recreate that item at home with ingredients that you can purchase, you might want to put it back. You should be able to understand everything that's in that list. Natural and organic don't mean healthy. And now they rarely even mean natural or 100% organic. Just because a food is in a natural foods aisle or a health food store, it does not mean it's healthy. This also goes for specialty foods like gluten-free or dairy-free, because something that's gluten-free could still be loaded with sugar. It can contain unhealthy oils or be packed with ingredients that are harming our kids. With organic foods, you have to examine the label because some items may only have a certain percentage of organic ingredients as opposed to being 100% entirely organic. So you have to watch for that. If something says whole or natural or organic, the ingredient label should tell the true story. So that being said, watch out for sneaky tricks like the little asterisk symbol with certain ingredients, because they have their own ingredient list. That means it's something that has, other ingredients in it, and they're just not telling you because it falls under the umbrella of the bigger one. A big one is beware of natural flavors and colorings. There isn't much that's natural about those natural flavors and colors. The origins of those may have once been a whole food, but the amount of chemical processing that they have undergone basically renders them an entirely different thing. The bigger the claim, usually the more health washed it is. If they're really going out of their way with flashy health claims, you should be immediately skeptical that it's covering up or masking something else, the poor ingredients that's in it. Ensure that most of your diet doesn't come in any packaging at all. Fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, herbs, whole grains, nuts, seeds, organic and naturally raised animal foods are incredibly nutritious, and you typically don't see health washing on those. These are the foods that should be the mainstay of our diets. They offer us energy, balance blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, improve sleep, and they help us poop, which is the ultimate detoxification. So Angie, if you could show the Gatorade example, you can all see that a product that many perceive to be healthy, probably because it's related to athletics and we give it to our kids. I know my girls, when they were in sports, drank it, didn't love it, but they did drink it, and it was readily available by parents bringing it. But you can see that product label, the ingredient list right there, the first thing, the first couple of things, sugar, dextrose, some chemicals, natural, there's our friend, the natural flavor. There's sucrose again. So that's called ingredient splitting, where they take that sugar and they put it into different terminology. So that's something you want to look at. And of course the dyes, there's like 3 in there. And those are just really horrible. So you should try to avoid those. And then Angie, there's, I think Cheerios is another one. The Very Berry Cheerios, breakfast cereals, breakfast foods are very popular items to be health washed because we think, hey, let's start our day out. Cereal is one of the worst. It's pretty much just loading your kids up with a lot of sugar in the morning. Even though that says whole grain oats, it's not organic. So it's probably been sprayed with a lot of chemicals, pesticides. You've all heard about the glyphosate. So there's a lot of bad things in there. And even though there's some good stuff down at the bottom, those are less of them because they're towards the end. There's some dyes in there as well. So, you can see all the things that are in there that, really don't want to. So you really need to pay more attention to the ingredients than the nutrition label. For me, you can learn so much more about the ingredient list, and then you can definitely, cross-reference that with the nutrition label, but you have to see what's in there first. Having like an FDA approved food isn't always the best either. As I touched on before, so many of our foods, are really just a lot of chemicals that are allowed to be in our food, and they are banned in other countries. And I've seen some examples of like, let's say Cheez-Its, and our USA version of the Cheez-Its had about 45 ingredients in it, big long list, and the UK version had about 10 or 12. And I thought that's a big difference. We need to be, if you're going to have Cheez-Its, then you need to have something that has less ingredients in it. Let's see. So Heather's going to dive deeper into the ingredient splitting, as I was talking about earlier. Most label claims focus on describing or highlighting certain nutrients in the food. So once we begin to apply the critical eye to the claims on food packages and what they actually mean, the more we'll feel empowered to choose the products that are going to support our optimal wellness. And you may find that once you actually start reading the ingredient lists and you learn how to detect health washing, you will end up putting more products back on the shelf than you place in your cart. And this is a huge signal to stores and companies that we want real food, not unhealthy chemical food that is dressed up in a fancy package. So before I conclude my part, let's talk about organic. So I don't know if most of you know, but I found out that organic in processed food is totally different than organic in the produce aisle. So you can look here at this list of what organic in processed food means. Again, you want to, it's not going to be 100% organic because maybe there are no antibiotics, but it's nice to see no glyphosate on the sprayed crops. That's kind of one of the biggest one. The ionized radiation, those are huge. The high fructose corn syrup. So it's really important if you can look on a box and see, still flip it over, but you definitely would want to, look for that. It is helpful. As far as organic and processed food, that would be the next slide. There are still chemicals and pesticides allowed in organic farming, but significantly less. Conventional farming is 900, around 900, and that's also changing too, but there's only about 25 synthetics allowed in organic farming, and those synthetics have to go through rigorous testing to prove that there was no other option, and that they're not harmful to the health, to your health, to human health, or the environment. So still better to look for that. But in conclusion, my recommendation is either grow what you can or buy from local farmers. You can rest much easier knowing that your food is most likely organic. If it's local, it's probably fresher, it's more nutrient dense than food that has been harvested weeks ago and shipped to your grocery store. And the food that we grow doesn't need a label to decipher. But since we will most likely be buying most things we eat at the store, Heather's going to give us some insight on how to read and understand those labels.
Great. Oh my gosh, Lisa, such great information. And, I agree. The ingredient list is probably something that tells a big tale. We don't probably pay too much attention to that. I think most of us, when we look at a label, this is the type of label that we're looking at this first. And I don't know about you, but it seems when I'm talking with people, what they focus so much on is calories. And really that tells just very little of the story. So I first want to just direct your attention to the serving size. And, you can see here that there is 1 cup is the serving size. So that 280 calories is for 1 cup, not for the whole package. And this here is a cup. So, probably many of us don't measure what it is we're having. Let's say it's some potato chips or, some cereal. I doubt many of us, even a bowl of cereal, most of our bowls are going to hold at least 2 cups. And so really just think about that. And I even encourage you sometimes to just measure it out of curiosity and see what is just a cup or a serving size. So those calories listed is the energy that 1 serving provides. The next thing is saturated fat. That's something to pay attention to on our labels. This is obviously a nutrient that can cause, high blood pressure, other heart-related problems. And ideally, we would want to keep our intake 20% or less. And again, this is just in general that we're speaking here. And so you can see that this particular label has 23% saturated fat. So we just want to start to pay attention to how much of that we're getting. The next is sodium. Goal would be in general to be under 2,300 milligrams per day. And this item here has about a little over 1/3 of that already. And so again, it's something to at least give you a frame of reference and maybe give you an idea of where you want to stay below and at least start looking at your labels and how much sodium is in the foods that you're picking. The next is carbohydrates. And I don't really pay much attention to carbohydrates. I really look at the fiber and the sugars, which make up our carbohydrate source. I think in general, we live in a carbohydrate feared world. People seem to want to avoid carbohydrates, and there are two different kinds of carbohydrates. So we want the healthy, complex carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans. Those are a good thing. They're a major energy source for us. They're energy for the brain. And so we want a minimum of 150 grams. Okay. And so you can see that this here is a low carbohydrate item. But what I like to pay attention to really more than carbohydrates is fiber. These amounts that are listed here, 38 grams per day for men and 25 per day for women, I believe are low, on the low end. I would encourage you to, even for women, go 30 to 35 grams per day, and really focus more on how can I find foods that provide that versus trying to find low carb foods, right? We really want to look for those high fiber foods. In terms of added sugar, again, 12 grams or less added sugar, as a recommendation here, and then protein, 20 grams protein each meal or snack. So again, these are just very general guidelines. Angie, if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so Dr. David Katz, a physician at Yale, did a nutrition detectives label reading for children, but we can really go back to the basics, right? And learn a lot from that. And so on this next slide here, we see we don't want to necessarily trust the cover. Okay, so this fruit and grain bar, again, I would venture to say probably has 0 fruit in it. All right. But as Lisa spoke to, it really makes us seem like it would be a healthy choice because it's got fruit and it's got grains. All right. And so we really want to be careful about the label. The next thing to watch out for is the first ingredient is the biggest. All right. And so sugar here is listed as our number 1 ingredient. That means there's going to be more sugar in this item than anything else listed. All right. And so that certainly would be one that you would want to, stay away from. And then identifying harmful ingredients. So this list is certainly not everything. Lisa had many of them listed on her slide. You might just want to screenshot this, but these are definitely things that you're going to want to stay away from: your MSG, your hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, etc. And then finally, on this next slide is the long ingredient list. So milk and cereal bars. Milk and cereal don't seem too harmful, but I can't even probably pronounce most of the items here in this list. And so again, when you see a huge ingredient list, in my opinion, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it. I would just put it back and move on to something else because you see sugar is not only listed up at the top there, it's a long list and there's a lot of words that I certainly wouldn't be able to pronounce and or create in my own kitchen. And so that might be something you'd put away. And then finally, 2 grams of fiber or more. And so this is obviously a low fiber food. And so we're really looking to have, more fiber in our food. So this list here of 5 things are just sort of some things that, should be on your radar, right? When you're looking at labels, before you dig too deep, if any of these things stand out to you, then I might just pass that item along. Okay, Angie, if you want to flip to the next slide from this. All right, so this is a fun little slide, and what this is here is an item that we might commonly eat. And so when we look at that list, does anyone have a guess of what this might be? Angie, if you want to reveal, this is a cupcake. All right. And so again, when you read this list, nothing jumps out to me. I have no idea what that might be, but this here is a cupcake. All right, the next one. All right, so this here is something that contains cancer inhibitors like beta carotene. It's rich in vitamin C. And what might this be? It's an orange. And we don't think a lot about our items in the produce section of the grocery store. They don't have a label, right? And I guess we just sort of take that for granted. We're not thinking a lot about it. And I don't even look at the labels on the frozen produce that I buy. I really just don't pay a lot of attention. So it might just be something to look at in order to have a reference with other items that you're choosing in the grocery store. All right, this next is kind of fun as well. So here is a nice long list of food dyes and sugar and hydrogenated vegetable oil and all types of words that I don't know what they mean. And this is Fruit Loops. And so we always hear to eat the rainbow, and it's not the rainbow of colors in Fruit Loops or the rainbow of colors in your Skittles candy, but the rainbow of colors in our produce section. So, and then we've got one more for you, I think, here. And this is an item that contains many anti-cancer substances such as beta carotene. I love this statement here: contains as much calcium per serving as milk, a super source of chromium, which helps regulate insulin and blood sugar. So this is broccoli. Love it. And, you know, we don't think, so many people think they need to get their calcium from milk. Just side note here. And really, we can get so much calcium from broccoli and other fresh produce. And so this next slide here is a really fun one. So one thing we want to talk about is many processed foods should have sugar listed as their first ingredient, okay? Because there's a list here, but there's over 60 names for sugar. And so many companies will use a variety of those, splitting the ingredients, as Lisa spoke to get the sweetness they need in the food. But because ingredients are listed by weight, they don't have to list sugar as the first ingredient, right? Throw a little dextrose in here, a little sucrose in there, a little Splenda in there, and poof, you've got a sweet item, but you didn't have to list sugar as your first ingredient. And so this is, again, there are many other names, but just some of the more popular names you would want to avoid. And I just want to talk for a minute, you know, sucralose is an item that's Splenda, right? Saccharin is another big one, aspartame, and then sugar alcohols, you know, people, things like sorbitol, mannitol, those are not broken down well by our bodies. And so they cause a lot of gas and bloating. And you'll see those in a lot of our like diet nutrition bars, and, you know, sort of health food type items. That's just a one way to get your sugar low. They can list it separately as sugar alcohols, but our body does not do well with those. Dextrose is considered natural because it is made from starchy plants, but it is still processed. Okay, so it can be even more addicting than sugar, and it can make things much sweeter. And so you can see that's listed there as well. And then on the right side are just some better choices. You know, when you're doing your baking, you're adding your you know, maybe trying to make a smoothie a little bit sweeter, or just using anything that requires some sort of form of sweetness. These are all better choices. And I'll just tell you, whenever a recipe I'm making, whether it be a muffin or, you know, a bread, or just something that even a dessert type item, I usually use about half of the sugar that it calls for, you know, and I always try to make substitutes when I can. And so that's just some things to keep in mind there. And then on our next slide, we are just sharing some hidden names for MSG. You know, we all know to avoid MSG, but the one that stuck out to me is the yeast extract. You know, I think people look at yeast extract and they think, oh, well, that can't be too bad for you, right? Yeast isn't bad. That's how we get our bread extract. That's fine. And again, these are just hidden names for MSG. And honestly, until we were doing a little bit of research for this presentation, I didn't even know that. And so basically MSG is a chemical additive that is a flavor enhancer, and it really causes us to crave more of these foods. And so that's a big, you know, reason why we want to avoid that. MSG has been shown to cause lesions on brains in kids, causing cognitive, endocrinological, and emotional abnormalities in children. And so you know, a lot of this MSG is going to be in our snack food items that you know, we have in our home. And so we really want to be careful of that. All right, so on this next slide here, we have a fun little visual. Peanut butter is one of those things, you know, there's lots of peanut butters, right? And I've always been a big fan of buying my peanut butter at Trader Joe's because I think they have a good selection, they're a good price, and they don't have a lot of ingredients listed other than just the very basics. So Jif is not the same as your natural peanut butter. And you can see here on the left side, this is 100% peanuts, no salt added. And so, yeah, go ahead and flip, Angie. This natural peanut butter is just peanuts, right? That's all that's in it. But if you want to go one more slide and see what's in our Jif, we have a little bit of powdered sugar and some salt and some molasses and some Crisco all added to our peanuts. And so, yes, it does taste delicious, but you know, I have to say, I have switched our family over many years ago to 100% peanut butter. And really, I don't think you'll really notice when it's just something you need to be mindful of, you know, right? If you don't know about it, you wouldn't really think any different. And so just flip that peanut butter over and look to see the ingredients. It should say peanuts only, or at the very least, peanuts and salt. And that's the same with your almond butter, your cashew butter, those as well. Those two should not have other ingredients listed. All right, so we are going to transition here. Lisa's going to just speak a little bit about our Juice Plus labels. And this is something that really stood out to me when I heard about Juice Plus, is that there was a nutrition facts label. And that meant a lot to me. It was not a supplement facts label. And I loved that the ingredient list was whole food. And so, Lisa, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Thank you. You know, same. I can echo that sentiment. That is why I appreciate the simplicity of Juice Plus labels, because they're easy to read. I recognize all of the ingredients. I know what the non-GMO means. I know it's better than organic because they have all their own farmers, so their standards are much higher. I know it's better than organic. I know I'm assured that I'm getting what it says because of the NSF certification. You guys can see that over there. And what that means is that the label has been audited and verified by the NSF, which is, I think, National Science Foundation, to include what's on the ingredient list and only what's on that list. There's no hidden things that they didn't say. So that's what I thought, you know, on all of them, you know, there's my quad. Oh, hang on, my little blur there. But I love the fact that it's just, you know, plain and simple. And even though there are things, you know, like the tocopherols and like the citrus extract as well, that are, you know, on the lower part of the label, all of those things, they're not chemically enhanced. And so that means a lot to me. It means a lot for my family. And so, because I'm a big label reader, and that's super important to me. So I think this has been a wealth of information. I hope that it's been really helpful to everyone on. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, we are going to continue to share this information and education so that, you know, we can make the healthiest, you know, choices for our families. Here's the berry blend, and you can see on there, you know, your ingredients. I mean, look at that right there. You can just read them easy. All that parsley, beet, carrot. I mean, how it doesn't get much easier than that. So all of your ingredient list should be that easy to read. Which is what we're saying, like there's no labels in the produce aisle. So you really should stay on the perimeter of the store. But anyway, so I think that pretty much concludes my part. I guess we can open up for questions if any. I know there's been a couple of questions, it looks like, in the chat. So if we want to hit that. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't been monitoring the chat here. So
I do see there's one question, Angie, about the silk almond milk creamer.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any of that here with me to, I will say that creamer is something that and Lisa, you chime in too, but I really love my coffee. And so coffee creamer is important to me. And we talked about maybe comparing some different creamers, but I am a big fan of, I do like the nut pods, but there's also probably the cleanest one that I enjoy is a powdered form. It's called Laird Superfood Creamer, LAIRD. And they have a lot of flavors. You can get it online, probably get it at some, maybe even Whole Foods, and it's very good. And so again, I just think you want to, when you're looking at your labels, you know, one of the things that a lot of these creamers put in it is carrageenan. It's irritating to the gut, and gives a lot of issues with IBS. And I know that's something I used to deal with. They, you know, can contain some buffering agents, emulsifiers, you know, you just want to be on the lookout for that. And again, find something with very, very few ingredients. Lisa, do you have any comments on that one?
Well, you know, I use a lot of almond milk. I don't use creamer per se, but I would agree with everything you said. And as far as almond milk goes, you know, you think, oh, there's a healthy choice. Turn that label around and you will see they're filled with gums, the carrageenan, all the things. And you're just like, what? There is one that I really, Blue Diamond is actually a really good one. Not to put, you know, certain brands out there, but they do have a pretty clean label. And Malk, MALK, their label is literally almonds. I think it's I mean, if you just get the basic unsweetened, you know, plain one, it's just almonds. So yeah, so you would be surprised at the things that, you know, and like I said, we've talked about this before too, you know, 80-20, do it most of the time. We can't live 100% toxin free in this world. It's just not possible. And so we shouldn't stress ourselves out to the point of like, oh my gosh, what can I have? Because everything's toxic. You know, start with your processed foods, you know, make some good choices there. You can always make a better choice. And so if you just start paying attention, you know, I think your stress level will actually go down because you'll be like, wow, I'm doing something really good for myself. But this is just information. Hopefully it helped.
Jane asked, do we have a good idea for adding more potassium? I don't know if any suggestions there from anyone, or if we can just get back to Jane on that.
I actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Lisa.
It's just a quick one. I actually do use a trace mineral salt that I use, and I put it in my water and I mix it in some other things. I use it. That's my salt that I use. It has like magnesium and potassium and trace minerals. So that's what I use. I use a trace mineral salt. There's a couple of options like that you could do. Heather, you might have something better being a dietitian.
No, other than just, again, fruits and vegetables, sweet potatoes, broccoli, raisins, dates, bananas, oranges, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ladies, can I, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Kiwi has a lot of potassium.
Nice.
Interesting.
You know, a lot of times I do, you know, when I am really focused on one particular thing, I just Google, you know, what foods are richest in that. And I look those up and I start to think, okay, well, how can I, first of all, do I have any of those in my house? Second of all, can I get some and how can I add those to my diet?
I just wanted to add one little promo for something that our Juice Plus company does once a month. It's called the Shred. And it is a way to strip toxins from your body. And the person who invited you tonight, I'm not going to go into all those details, but we're starting tomorrow. It's not too late to join us. So if you want to talk to the person who invited you, they can get you added to our Facebook group, which even if you don't join us this time, come on and enjoy some education about what this program is about. It's just 10 days where you're stripping toxins. And I, for one, feel very good when I'm doing my shred. So thank you. Thank you, ladies, for your education tonight. Very, very helpful.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording.